Good evening, everyone. What's happening? This your girl Tiffany coming through here live in effect. Tonight's topic is going to be discussing about the diaspora and the history between Miami, Florida, and the Bahamas. But before I get started, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and share the channel. Now, lately, I've been doing a lot of researching on the relationship between the Caribbeans and the Black people here in America. All right, and there's a lot of relationship that we have with one another. We have so much in common, and we have a lot of culture that we share. As far as like cultural identity is concerned. So someone had brought it to my attention about the Bahamian people and their impact of the Miami culture. So I happened to be on the platform, and the sister I was on the platform with, she brought this up. So I said, well, I'll just go ahead and look it up for myself to make sure the information is accurate. But she brought up how the Bahamian culture played a major role in Miami, how the Bahamian people played their part in the Miami community, just the city of Miami in general. So I looked up and I said, wow, I would never known about this. And I don't know how many people known about this. I'm quite sure those in Florida, and particularly in Miami, know about this history, but everybody else don't really know a lot about this. So I wanted to share this with everyone. Hey, sister Juju, how you doing? How you doing? What's up? So I want to be able to share the information that I came across, and I'm going to use the Chat GPT, okay? Because the Chat GPT come in handy. All right. So if you want to know a lot of things and you got a lot of questions, just post it in the chat. Just post it in the chat. All right. Use the AI. So it helps you out a lot, and you can go back and verify the source. All right. All right. She put there is a Bahamian Gullah connection. Yeah. And also, like I did on my last video about the people from Barbados, right? There is the Barbadian connection with the Gullah Geechee culture. There is. So, with that being the case, yeah, there's a lot of relationship going on between the Caribbeans and those here in America. Give me one moment, y'all. Okay. All right, so now let me go ahead and share this information with y'all. I hope y'all can still see me. The light had cut off on me. So, according to the GPT chat, right? I wish this was my house. But it's a beautiful background, though. It is. Yeah. I like the piano over here at this corner. All right. So, according to the Chat GPT, the relationship between the Bahamas and Miami, Florida is characterized by geographical proximity, historical ties, cultural exchange, economic connection, and a significant Bahamian diaspora in Miami. Here are some key aspects of their relationship. So it says the Bahamas are located just off the coast of Florida, making them a popular destination for Floridans, including those from Miami, for tourism, trade, and cultural exchange. The proximity has facilitated economic and social interaction between two regions. Now, here come the historical ties. The Bahamas were a British colony until gaining independence in 1973. Yes, you heard it right. They gained their independence in 1973. During the colonial period, there were significant interaction between the Bahamas and Florida, including trade, migration, and cultural exchanges. Many Bahamians migrated to Florida, particularly Miami, seeking economic opportunities and a better life. The sister said you can travel to the Bahamas on a jet ski. I could believe that, but the question is, when you have to have a passport, if you gonna travel on the jet ski, wouldn't you have to show a passport to get through? Because I know they will require that. Yeah, I'm curious, but I wonder if they're gonna ask you for a passport. And hmm, interesting though. But anyways, now here's the part about the Bahamian diaspora, right? The Bahamian diaspora in Miami. Miami has a sizable Bahamian diaspora community with many residents of the Bahamian descent living in the city and surrounding areas. This diaspora has contributed to the cultural diversity of Miami, influencing aspects such as cuisine, music, and tradition. Now, if you guys know about Miami in particular, it's very diversified. Like New York is very diversified, Miami is very diversified. You're gonna see there's a lot of Latin culture influence and a lot of Caribbean influence in Miami. Okay, so you have various people from the Caribbean background, and majority of them are either Haitian, Bahamian, right, Jamaican. Yeah, so they have a very strong cultural diversity, especially when it comes to Black people. All right, you got a lot of Dominicans out there in Miami. You have uh, a lot of Cuban people. So it's a strong diversity in that city. They have such a strong diversity. Now, let's go into the relationship that the Black Bahamians have with the Miami community and how they play their role. So, watch this. The Black Bahamian community has had a significant impact on the cultural, social, economics, and historical landscape of Miami, Florida. Here are some key aspects excuse me. Here are some key aspects of the impact of Black Bahamians in Miami. So, Black Bahamians have a long history of migration to Miami dating back to the late 19th and early 20th century. Many Black Bahamians came to Miami seeking economic opportunity, better living conditions, and to escape racial discrimination in Bahamas. Their migration could contribute to the growth and development of Miami as a diverse and vibrant city. Okay? And it says Black Bahamians have made significant cultural contribution to Miami, particularly in the areas of music, food, and art. Bahamian cultural traditions such as Jacano, rake and scrape music, and Bahamian cuisine have influenced the cultural landscape of Miami, enriching the city's cultural heritage. And it says the community building. Watch this. The Black Bahamian community in Miami has played a vital role in community building and preservation of cultural heritage. Organization, churches, and social groups formed by Black Bahamians have helped maintain their cultural identity, tradition, and values within the broader Miami community. Okay. Now, I want to say this. It's not to say that the Africans here in America or who are descendant of Africans who was enslaved here in America didn't do anything. However, they were not alone, is what I'm saying. So you had the Black Caribbeans and the Africans here in America working side by side with each other to build up a community, to build up an environment, right? And share cultural ideals. Okay. But what we have in common at the end of the day, we all go back to the transatlantic slave trade. Okay. We all go back to the transatlantic slave trade. We all got that same common ancestors, right? That were brought here to not only to the United States, but also to the Caribbeans. As a matter of fact, a large portion of Africans were brought to the Caribbean, right? Where and South America and Latin America, whereas like 5% of blacks were brought over to the United States. Okay. And I say this all the time. If you study your genetics, if you take a DNA test, and you will see that your ancestry, your recent ancestor, goes back to somebody that come from the Caribbean, that will show you the ties and connection. That shows you the historical standpoint. That show you the information is accurate, okay? That all got something to do with transatlantic slave trade. So you're not only going to find out that you have African ancestry come from Central West Africa, but you have a common ancestor coming from the Caribbean. You will notice that. Somebody say you need to stop. Who are you and where did you come from and what's your purpose? Now, unless you come here to correct information, I don't need to stop doing a damn thing. You came here. You invited yourself here. So maybe you need to log off and go somewhere else. All right. So now, getting that out the way, because the problem is Black people feel like, well, what did the Caribbean people do for us? Oh, the Caribbean people, they ain't do this, they ain't other. Well, what we got in common? A lot. I mean, if you really study, they have really done a lot. And again, you won't be able to tell the difference between who came from the Caribbean islands and who came from America, unless somebody said it or if they spoke another language. So here's some more information to back it up for those of you who are hiding under the rock, for those of you who are in a state of denial. Okay, so I'm gonna go to the website in itself. This is a website called southernfoodways.org. All right, not sure why this up here. Let's see if I can get this off of here. Hold on. So here's a website, which is called the southernfoodways.org. All right, Miami's Bahamian roots. Watch this. Built by Bahamian immigrants Mariah and Ernest Brown in 1890, the Mariah Brown House is one of the oldest houses in the Little Bahama section of Coconut Grove, Miami. All right. Miami is a deep South American city with Bahamian roots. Excuse me. And it says, before the city of Miami was incorporated in 1896, Black Bahamians brought their culinary practices to this place they would call their new home, migrating to the South Florida for maritime jobs, farm work, and later to build the city's physical infrastructure. In 1834, decades before slavery was abolished in the United States, the British emancipated the Black people it had enslaved in the Bahamas since at least the 1700s. Let me read that again for those of you that are hiding under a rock. In 1834, decades before slavery was abolished in the United States, the British emancipated the Black people it had enslaved in the Bahamas since at least the 1700s. Okay? And as in the United States, many Black workers in the Bahamas post enslavement were ensnared in a sharecropping-like system that saw them working pineapple farms owned by predominantly white landowner with exploitative labor practices. That means they might as well have been in slavery. I mean, think about it. Anyways, as economic prospects continue to dwindle at home, Bahamians in search of stronger financial futures found work plentiful in nearby South Florida in the late 1800s. Miami could not have become a city without black Bahamian laborers. 44% of the men who signed the incorporation papers in 1896 to establish Miami as a city were black men, some of whom were Bahamian. Again, Miami could not have become a city without black Bahamian laborers. 44% of the men who signed the incorporation papers in 1896 to establish Miami as a city were black men, some of whom were Bahamian. All right. Now it says Miami is a city that loves to reinvent its image over and over and over again. More recently, presenting itself as a waterfront, diverse, colorblind, utopian amalgamation of Latin America and the Caribbean. And as I mentioned before, it is very diversified. Now, Miami makes invisible its integral Black history in part to rebrand from the legacy of racial terror here, which reminds you that this is, in fact, the Deep South, an American city with a strong Black Caribbean influence. Okay? Now it says in 1920, Bahamians made up just over 50% of Miami's Black residents. In their quest to build a new life in this very young city, Bahamians found work and white terrorism plentiful. All right. So, so you got Little Haiti, and then you have an area called Little Bahamas. All right. Now I want to share some more information with y'all. I'm not going to stop there. Okay, brother. All right. So one person had to go. That's a troll. So I had to let that troll go. All right. So that's one information I want to share. Now I have another information I would like to share with you all. Watch this. Um, it says how Bahamians came to be among the first settlers in Miami. The history you may not know. And this comes from face2faceafrica.com. And it says in 1896, when the city of Miami was established, historian says that there were 367 people who voted to officially make it a city. Of that number, 162 were black residents, and the first name on the charter of the city was that of a black man called Silas Austin. In actual fact, Bahamians, Haitian, the Caribbean diaspora, and African Americans helped shape or create the region. The election took place in what was called the Lobby Building, a wood frame building built that year. There was nothing there prior to 1896, other than the Toodles home on the north bank of the river. Historian Dr. Paul George told WLRN the incorporation meeting took place between 2 p.m. and 10 p.m. And it was all male, as far as we know, because women in Florida did not have the right to vote at that time. And so the voters, including more than one-third of the voters being African American, many of whom were Bahamian Americans, voted by acclamation for a city of Miami. But you'll never know that, right? You'll never know that, or you'll never hear about that information. See, while they in school trying to change up the narratives, right, and trying to omit information, the information is right here on the internet. So all a person has to do is go find it. Of course, you would never learn this in school. You would have never learned this at all, because they don't want to give black people credit here in this country, as we can tell. The white dominant culture want to take all the credit, but we sitting up here arguing about what diaspora had it worse when it came to slavery, when it came to racial discrimination. We got people sitting up here arguing about this, but nobody is really paying attention to what they're doing in Florida, South Carolina, and Virginia as far as changing the curriculum is concerned. And half the people that going back and forth and arguing about things, right, they cannot tell you, especially those who are African Americans, I said it, they cannot really give historical information. They can only argue that my ancestor built this country. Okay, yes, your ancestor built this country. Yes, our ancestor built this country. All right, now what else you know? What else you know besides our ancestor building this country? What else do you know? Do you know that our ancestors had their own cities? They had their own communities? Did you know that? Hmm? Did you know our ancestors founded their own cities and their own communities? Most would never know that because they didn't go that far into their studies. I mean, and if they do, they'll know about Tulsa, Oklahoma, because you hear a lot about Tulsa, Oklahoma, more than anything else. But nobody knows about Allensworth, California, Africa Town in Alabama, um, Little Haiti in North Carolina, I think, or is it Haiti in North Carolina? I think it's in North Carolina. They can't tell you about Staten, Virginia, about the Igbo village out there, which one day I am going to do a subject on. Yes, there is an Igbo village out in Staten, Virginia. So if you really engulf into your ancestor building this country, you would have done the research and really actually know, well, what city did they found it as well? What neighborhood they found it? What community they had? And how do we as black people in America go about protecting those communities? Preserving those communities? Instead of getting on the internet screaming, my ancestor built this country. That does nothing. That doesn't serve any purpose. Yes. What else do you know? All right. So, but going back once again, the incorporation meeting took place between 2 p.m. and 10 p.m. and it was all male as far as we know, because women in Florida did not have the right to vote at that time. And so the voters included more than one-third of the voters being African American, many of whom were Bahamian Americans, voted by acclamation for a city of Miami. And even though the Bahamians and people from the Caribbean were some of the first settlers in what would become Miami, Jim Crow laws limit them to specific areas. As history shows, early settlers from the Bahamas built Coconut Grove, a neighborhood in Miami. Here's how it all began. Let's see. Okay, it says in the 1880s, a group of Bahamians settled in Miami. They settled here because the first work that was available to blacks that was not farm work was available at the Peacock Inn. Historians and Arthur Marvin Dunn told NBC Miami. He said the Bahamians were brought in to work at the Peacock Inn as gardeners and cooks. Even though they worked at the hotel, they lived in the West Grove along what was then called Evangelist Street, now Charles Avenue. It was on that street that the Bahamian Coconut Grove development began. The street would come to have many homes, businesses, and churches. Dr. Enid Pickney, who is the founding president of the historic Hampton House Community Trust in Miami's Brownsville corridor, said the early Bahamian Americans were very important because they brought their culture and food to Miami. They also knew how to farm, even though the area had coral rocks and theft land was barren, and we are still benefiting and living off some of the things that they have brought today. Pickney told WLRN last year. Pickney further said most people think that Miami as a place for immigrants started in 1959 and with the Cuban boat lift. And basically it shows that it goes further back. They don't know that back in the 1890s that the Bahamians would come in here and they settled in Coconut Grove, but they also settled in Lemon City. That kind of history is lost. It says, at the time the Bahamians were brought to Miami, piracy was a very attractive occupation for blacks as they believed it was better than slavery and they were rewarded with loot. Several black men had ships that powered it along the southeastern coast of Florida, including right here in Miami, said Dunn. Florida's most renowned black pirate who used the island of Elliott Key and other hiding places along the southeast Florida coast to conduct raids on unsuspected ships and villages was Black Caesar. He is still remembered by many as long-lasting pirate who survived past many of his contemporaries. Now, watch this. The Bahamian population in the Grove has declined over the years as families move to other parts of South Florida. However, their legacy can still be felt. There are currently two iconic homes still on Charles Avenue. The first is the home of the real estate magnate E.W.L. Stirrup, who was the first Bahamian to settle in the Grove. The second is the home of Mariah Brown, the first Bahamian woman to move to the neighborhood. The Bahamian section of Coconut Grove has become one of the most gentrified communities in the city of Miami. On the back of this, the city of Miami recently designated several homes, about 20 or 30 of these stirrup types homes as historical landmarks, and they cannot be destroyed, Dunn said. Now, that's another article that you can find this information on. See, now it's amazing. It's amazing that black people, right, contribute their votes on this current city that is known for its extravagant lifestyle. It's known for the parties, the beautiful beaches, And all the famous rappers and TV shows like Miami Vice. We grew up watching Miami Vice. I mean, some of y'all too young out there. That was one of the best shows to watch. Then you had movies like All About the Benjamin. That was based in Miami. So this town, that was a very small town, and that was actually a neighborhood, a little small community, turns out to be something very, very extravagant. And black people played the most part in that. But not enough credit is given. Boy, listen, it's so much information out there. Let's see, what else we gonna find up in here? Oh, shotgun houses. Now, shotgun houses is very common in the South. You'll find a lot of them, especially if you go to places like Louisiana and Georgia. Yeah, you'll find shotgun houses. It's some little small houses, very small, and probably got one door and maybe like 2 or 3 windows. All right. So this information right here that I'm going to show y'all talks about Miami's shotgun homes built by the community for the community from Carlson Bear, right? Okay, so going down, it says, in addition to the labor they put into constructing the city of Miami, the Bahamian community also built their neighborhood. Excuse me, the Bahamian community also built their own neighborhood in the shotgun style. The shotgun houses, named for their long rectangular shape, where a shotgun blast could supposedly travel through the building without hitting a wall, were one room wide with rooms placed back to back. Okay. Now this is an example of a shotgun house, and we got a lot of that in Georgia. Of course, in Louisiana, they have it, and as well as in Florida. Yeah, these are the shotgun houses. And it says the purpose of the homes were primarily to provide shelter, since most activities in the neighborhood were conducted outdoors, allowing for a generous amount of community interaction. According to story, bonds among friends, neighbors, and families living in Coconut Grove continued through the 20th century. It was wonderful in the neighborhood, she recalled. The kids could go out to play every day, and we all walk down to school together. They used to block off the neighborhood parks around Christmas so the kids could skate and bike. Many descendants of the original Coconut Grove community own property in the neighborhood today. Story rents out the same shotgun home on Fro Avenue built by her grandfather nearly 100 years earlier. All right. Said while the fight to protect shotgun homes continued, Day Heritage Trust also helping residents keeping their properties in shape. Day Heritage Trust recently started working with Rebuilding Together Miami-Dade, a nonprofit that provides home repairs for low-income people to help community members repair their historic homes. Rupp explains that unlike other organizations which rely on untrained volunteers, Rebuilding Together uses professionals to help with longer lasting repairs, a benefit for historic homes that have more specific rules and standards for repairs. All right. So I just want to share that information with you. Now, to my knowledge, The history of what is called shotgun homes get its architecture structure from those in the African villages. As a matter of fact, I can pull that information up for you guys real quick. Let's look at the history behind shotgun homes. Now, watch this. I'm finna post it up for you. Let me go ahead and post this information up for you guys. All right, it says history of the shotgun house. Right. So, watch this. It says, true to its unique name, the shotgun house has a story past developed with affordability in mind. Shotgun houses kept a deliberately small and narrow footprint in an attempt to fit as many homes as possible onto a single block. The community of shotgun houses in New Orleans are attributed to the Haitian and West African refugees, immigrants, and slaves who called the city home in 1800s. This style of linear construction was common in West Africa and later in Haiti. Again, it was common in West Africa and later in Haiti. All right. So those type of homes in particularly were a common structure in the Haitian culture and within the West African culture. All right. Now watch this. No one is absolutely sure how the structure earned its unique moniker. Some believe it was a nod to the idea that you could fire a shotgun at the front of the house and the bullet would pass straight through to the back of the house. Other attribute to the name to the word tagoon, which is West African for house or gathering place. Either way, the title has become ubiquitous with the linear architectural style, which has received a new surge of interest in the past few years from preservationists and homeowners alike. So the shotgun homes are supposed to be a little bit more cheaper than having regular houses, but I just want to share that little information with y'all, that little piece. All right. Let's see what else what information I want to give to you guys. All right, so let me share one more piece. So right here, this article comes from Florida Historical Quarterly, right? It was written in 1986. Black immigrants, Bahamians in early 20th century Miami. All right, from Raymond A. Mahal. All right. All right, so let's go down to here. It says the story of how Miami became a destination for black immigrants from the Bahamas began early in Florida history. Bahamian blacks had been familiar with Florida's lower east coast, and particularly the Florida Keys, long before the building of Miami. In the early 19th century, when Florida was isolated and undeveloped, the area was commonly frequented by Bahamian fishermen, wreckers, and seamen, as well as traders who dealt with the Seminole Indians. According to the Bahamian writer, these early visitors regarded Florida much as another island of the Bahamas. In fact, many black Bahamians first arrived in the islands from Florida as slaves of the 3,200 British loyalists who fled after the American Revolution. Again, in fact, many black Bahamians first arrived in the islands from Florida as slaves of the 3,200 British loyalists who fled after the American Revolution. I would have never known that. I would have never known that information right there. So basically, the black Bahamians arrived in the islands from the state of Florida as slaves, okay, of the 3,200 British loyalists who fled after the American Revolution. And still later in the early 19th century, numbers of Seminole Negroes from Florida settled on Andros Island. Through the middle years of the 19th century, British officials in the Bahamas made sporadic efforts to recruit black immigrants from the American South. Thus, from an early day, Bahamians were knowledgeable about Florida, and many Bahamians immigrated to the islands from there. Okay. So a reverse migration had also begun by the mid 19th century. Unlike the rest of the British West Indies, plantation agriculture was never very successful or profitable in the Bahamas. Only about 2% of the total Bahamian land area, about 4,000 square miles, was considered suitable for crops. So most 19th century Bahamians earned a livelihood from the sea or from subsistence agriculture. By the 1830s, black and white Bahamians were beginning to migrate to the Florida Keys, especially Key West, where they worked in fishing, sponging, and turtling. All right. Um, by 1892, according to a recent study of blacks in the city, 8,000 of the 25,000 people in the Key West were Bahamian, and sponging was their mainstay. A large majority of Key West blacks can trace their ancestry to the Bahamian origins. The building of Miami after 1896 created new opportunities for Bahamian immigrants. Indeed, black Bahamian immigrants were attracted to Miami for the same reasons that European immigrants poured into the industrial cities of the Northeast and Midwest at the turn of the century. The new and rapidly growing result center provided opportunities for better jobs and higher wages than they had known in the islands. All right, so I'm saying this to say that these people did not just come in just yesterday. All right. They did not just come in 30 years ago. What I'm telling you is that these Bahamians been around for a long time. So while people holler out, oh, you immigrants, this, they, and other, whoopty, whoopty, whoop, they came over here around the time of slavery still taking place, or a little after slavery had ended. Now, I'm not going to read any more, but if you guys want to check out more information, let me go ahead and blow this thing up for y'all. See, if you guys want to check out more information, all you got to do is go to starslibrary.ucf.edu and look up Florida Historical Quarterly, Black Immigrants Black immigrants, Bahamians in early 20th century Miami. And the article came out in 1986, so you guys can read this up for yourself, look it up for yourself. You can find all the information out, okay? But anyways, I'm going to go ahead and log off, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video, got some information out of this. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, share the channel, and all this great stuff. And until next time, I will continue sharing more historical information. All right. But I want to say this, for those of my people out there who really know the history, who know the information, who has been studying, don't get discouraged by those who are totally oblivious or trying to sabotage information by creating a false narrative or using confirmation bias as a way to discourage the concept of bringing some form of unification to those within the diaspora and the continent. So if you know the information, you got the information, and you've been checking this stuff out, studying for yourself, share it with the people around you that need to know. Share it with those who needs to know this. You can't help everybody. You can't give information to those who don't want to receive it. Because there are people who are going to be totally oblivious. There's going to be people who are in a state of denial. There's going to use confirmation bias. There's going to try to sabotage whatever they can. Unfortunately. And they have their own hidden agendas. So watch out for certain individuals. But next time, please be safe. Peace and power elevation be to all of you. This your girl Tiffany, and I'm logging off.